Ave Regina,
Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." He replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator?" Then he said to the crowd, "Take care to guard against all greed. For though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions." Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do? For I do not have space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. Then I shall store all my grain and other goods, and I shall say to myself, 'Now, as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus it will be for the one who stores up treasure for himself, but is not rich in what matters to God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Many things in life follow the principle of inverse proportionality. I don't know whether you have heard this principle or not. The principle of inverse proportionality can be explained this way. When one value increases, the other decreases. For example, more workers on a job would reduce the time to complete the task. In the Gospel today, we see the clear illustration of this principle through the story of the rich fool. The dependency of the rich person on material things is inversely proportional to his closeness to God. The closer the person is to God, the further one will be from material things and pleasures. Jesus says through this story, worldly possessions takes one's heart away from possessing God as the greatest treasure. Richness and worldly fascination causes one's mind not to depend on God and on His providence and interventions. Prosperity and affluence makes one's soul to stray away from the hand of God and His love and care. It is the reality and happening in our world today. On one side, the money in one's hand is more, but the amount of happiness and peace is less. On one side, the wealth of the world is increasing, but on the other side, the poor in the world are in no way decreasing. Here we have to understand the power and capacity of human beings certainly is much, but it is still with a limit. Today, we are called to understand, accept, and acknowledge this limit, this constraint, and this boundary. When we try to give up our materialistic thinking, God is able to fill our inner desires and longings of the soul. It may be hard for us to let go of our dependence on material wealth and things, but if we do so, God will strengthen us. Once, our Holy Father Pope Francis told, so often we today can find our faith challenged by the world in countless ways. We are asked to compromise our faith, to water down the radical demands of the gospel, to conform to the spirit of this age. And finally, he told, let us put Christ first. Let us totally depend on the richness of God's grace. My dear brothers and sisters, the principle of inverse proportionality is the reality in our spiritual lives too. Let us depend less and less on the material things and the tendencies that fascinate us to the world, instead fascinating to God, so we can grow more and more close to the Lord. Let us give minimal control to the power of this world, so that we can give maximum control to our Lord Jesus. Yes, my brothers and sisters, less and less of me and more of God. That should be our attitude. Let us ask for that grace as we continue our celebration.
Regina Celi,
Letare, alleluia, qui aquae meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.